Awesome. All right. Well, you know, Kyla and I talked earlier today in anticipation of our time together here. And what I was sharing with her is I was feeling a bit like Lawrence, a little bit under the weather. And I said, you know,
Sorry, man.
yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
thought I had a nice nap earlier, but I was sharing with her. Um, I'm not in the best of moods right now, but I don't know what mood I'm going to be in by the time the call, and I'm not too worried about it because something will come to me. And that's really what one of the things that we're pointing to is that we're all sitting on some wisdom, and it's what I call wisdom on demand. And that's a really helpful way to go about life and go about parenting. And it's also what I call keeping it fresh, what's alive in the moment. And one of the things that's alive for me right now in us getting together is kind of a question to pose or to throw out. And Kyla doesn't even know this because this is so fresh, and we hadn't talked about it. But the question that came up for me, and maybe for us to kick off our time together, is how does worry and concern as a parent help a child?
Hmm.
All right. And it's a very, I'm pointing to something, and I'm wanting to open something up here because so often, and I'm a parent, and I work with I've been coaching and working with people for 27 years. And whether it's around finances or parenting or health, whatever it is, the question still stands true. But the question is, how does concern and worry as a parent help the child? So I'd like to just start with that and maybe kind of get us thinking. And so that's what I had, Kyla, to
Mhm.
kind of open things up. Like, how does worry or concern as a parent help the child? Okay. Now, I'll share a little something with you as you ponder this yourselves. Um, One of my mentors is considered by many people the greatest psychologist of our time. His name is Dr. George Pransky. And I remember working with him and being mentored by him. And he was sharing a story with me about a couple who had flown up with their 19-year-old daughter in Washington, just shy of the Canadian border. And their daughter had been in and out of recovery centers for eating disorder. And George and his wife Linda were kind of the last straw. They'd heard really great things about the work that they were doing, and so they said, kind of as their last resort, they were going to go up there and hear what this George Pransky guy, this world famous psychologist. And the way they work with couples and people and all of that is it's typically over the course of 3 or 4 days. So they do immersions. They don't do 1-hour sessions here and there. And so this couple had brought their 19-year-old daughter up there for a 4-day immersion. And one of the things that they do is it's very common for them to invite people into their home, just like Kyla and I have invited you into our homes right now, just inviting them in and to have dinner with them. And so this couple with their daughter, a 19-year-old daughter who weighed maybe 80 pounds soaking wet, or just under 90. And they go to have dinner, and they're having a lovely dinner. And of course, you can imagine what the young girl's plate looked like. She barely touched her food. Okay. And George looked over to her and asked her, are you going to eat your potatoes, sweetie? Because if not, I'd sure like them. Okay. At which point, what do you think the parents did? Well, the parents looked at each other hot in the head, red in the face, and they looked at each other and said, I think we've made a mistake bringing our daughter here. And so they were standing up and telling the daughter, I think we should go. I think we've made a terrible mistake. And they started to give George a piece of their mind and say, how dare you try to eat the potatoes off of her plate? Can't you see that she's barely touched her food and we can barely get her to eat anything? At which point the daughter told her parents to sit down, which was the most progress they had ever seen in the fact that the daughter told the parents to sit down. And the daughter continued to say that this is the first person that's treated me like a normal human being, and I can't remember when. Okay? See, what I learned from George in that moment is the power of taking worry and concern off the table and meeting people as a normal human being. And it was transformative for this family and the daughter. And so I just offer you that story, and now I'll go back and kind of open up. And I'd love to hear from you guys. How does worry and concern as a parent help your child? Lori, what are your thoughts on what I've just shared?
I mean, I think it's a good point that worry is not always helpful. Aside from me being aware that, you know, we're trying to pay attention to what's going on in their brains and what they might be dealing with in the home and outside of the home. And so I'm a worrier by nature and a bit of a control freak. So
yeah,
it's hard for me to kind of let go and let them form their own thoughts and be sure they're not just being influenced by what they see on YouTube or see going on at school. You know, are they really feeling what they're feeling, or is this just, you know, I don't know. So like I said, I worry by nature, and I guess, no, that's not helpful other than to kind of be mindful of trying to stay involved in what's going on and open to any conversations that they want to share with me. I do know that my son is almost 16, and he's old enough that he can read me. He knows when I'm worried or flustered, or a lot of times I feel like I have more on my brain that I want to ask him. And I'm not sure it's okay to ask, so I don't. And I know he senses that.
Yeah.
But worry is probably not helpful.
Well, now you know why I thought it's good to bring it up. Okay?
Yeah.
Because here's the really interesting thing is, like, if human beings, or people don't see that worry and concern is like, there's no logic in it. Like, it's not helpful. If you don't see that for yourself, then it's going to be really, really hard to really be helpful and create change and transformation. Okay, and that's what we're interested in, is helping people. But see, people don't change and the relationships don't change until people can see that their orientation, the way they're going about or approaching something, is not helping matters. Okay? It really matters. Now you're preaching to the choir. I'm a recovering control freak and worrier. Okay? All right? I am. I totally get it. I totally get it. All right? Now, I was just talking, I give group talks quite often. And, best I can tell is worrying is what I call parenting from the head. And love is parenting from the heart. Okay? Another way to say that is, worry is all about me. Love is all about my child. Okay? Now, when I heard that and saw that, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of me involved here, okay? Which is part of the problem. And so one of the things, when I look at taking worry out of the equation, then there's less me involved. And now I can just get to know my child. I get to know another person, okay? But if worry's there, if I'm looking at my child or life or situation through worry, I'm not going to be able to see anything very helpful. You could say I'm at the limits of what I can see. All right. Now, as soon as I'm able to let go of the worry, what arises out of that is curiosity, and curiosity is a really good thing. It's really helpful. What are your thoughts on that, Lori?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I like what you just said about, worry is about me and love is about my child. And I think I'm at the point where I'm making that turn. And I'm glad to hear that, I think curiosity is a positive thing, because I'm very curious, and I'm curious about what's going on in his head and how I can be helpful and how I can be supportive. It's just,
well, this is really good. This is really good, Lori. I'm gonna jump in 1 second. Now, part of the work that Kyla and I do is we help people understand what's underneath the human dimension, and we help them understand how the mind works. And see, what happens is when my son was really young, you could see his behavior. Like kids, they'll get upset, but then they get off of it very, very quickly. Okay. And then the older they get, they kind of hang on to stuff a little bit longer. But if we look at the nature of what allows people to get off of stuff, is that they just stop thinking about it or ruminating about it. Okay. That's all that's going on, is that they're ruminating about something. So I do a lot of work with business partners. They're having challenges in relationship. I work with couples. I work with parents. I work with people. And one of the most innocent mistakes is when people are in a low mood or they're in a worry or concern, they feel compelled to talk shit out. Okay? And it's not helpful because it keeps things around. It actually makes things worse. Okay? So one of the things I think would be a nugget here, or a bullet point, if you will, is you want to parent what I call be a high mood, low maintenance parent. Okay? So high mood is always making, what I would say, keeping the conversations out of the weeds, out of problematic thinking and troublesome thinking, because here's what we've learned is that every thought creates a feeling. Every thought creates a feeling. And whenever I'm stuck in troublesome thoughts, what I've learned is the nature of thoughts are transitory. They'll pass, okay? Now, traditional therapy and a lot of are very interventive by nature, and they think that talking about stuff like that is helpful. It is not helpful at all, okay? And I know what I'm sharing may fly in the face of a lot of other things that you may be hearing, but we get radical results when we help people in this area. I mean, people who have suffered from depression for 30 years, anxiety disorders, brain injuries. So what I'm presenting here is a radically different and what I would say a counter. It's almost the opposite of what you think would help. Okay. And so when your son starts, if you see him, what I call contract with his thinking, like he's overwhelmed, the best thing that would serve him would be to go get an ice cream, or go and just do something live life and have fun. All right. And the worst thing to do would be to dive in and stick your fork and knife into the thoughts that he's struggling with. I hope that's helpful, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually very helpful, because digging in with a knife and a fork is what I want to do.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. That's what I was looking for. It's counterintuitive. Yes.
It's exactly opposite of everything I've ever thought in my own therapy sessions or been led to do. But that helps me. That may not help him.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's not about.
if it helps you, it's going to help him. I guarantee it.
But I think it also just makes me feel better knowing that I don't have to keep pinging him for, are you okay? Do you need to talk about anything? Did something happen today? And just kind of maybe trust that he'll come to me. I mean, he has some already. But yeah, worrying just it's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just said something else there that's really important, Lori. And that is, he's looking for reassurance. You're looking for reassurance that he's okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, he's looking for that from you. Okay. And when you ask if he's okay, he's more confused than ever. Okay. Because he's thinking he's not okay, and you're asking if he's okay. So he's left with those two inquiries. Am I okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what the nature of the work that Kyla and I do is we point people very deeply into their true nature of who they really are. Okay. Now, I don't want to get too, grand here in this conversation, but it's really important that as a parent, as a coach, as a person in relationship, that we learn to grow eyes to see the innate okayness in every human being. Okay? Regardless of circumstances. So here's what I mean. My son gets bullied. Okay? Well, he's going to be okay no matter what, even if he was bullied. Okay? If he screwed up a speech at school, he's going to be okay. All right. So as a parent, as a coach, that's our job, is to focus on their okayness, which is always the case. And we use words like their innate well-being, their innate mental health, their innate wisdom. That is their okayness that is unshakable, that is only being stirred up or masked by a lot of extraneous thoughts or concerned thinking. Okay? And the more concerned and worrisome thoughts that they have, and then anybody else who brings their worry or concern, it becomes exponential. Okay? So the opposite is, the more hopeful you are, the more you point to their okayness and reassure them that they're okay, and that their okayness has nothing to do with what happened or didn't happen. That's really important to understand. And it's the same for you, Lori. Like, it's really important that you see that you're okay regardless of what happens in anything in life, including your son. Okay? And the more you come home to the fact, and you're able to come home to your okayness, that is the most helpful way to parent your son.
Yeah, and I think if I'm honest about it, and the more I kind of dive into this and try to read and pay attention to what other people are going through, when he talks, he seems okay, and he seems at peace, and he seems, he's very honest about, look, Mom, I don't know exactly what my label is. I just know this much. And he's okay with it. I think what I struggle with is that I don't know, even though I've sensed this for a long time, I don't know that I'm okay, in the sense that I don't know that I'm prepared to parent it correctly, and I don't want to screw it up. I don't want to say the wrong thing or handle it the wrong way, or I've suddenly stepped into this territory where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and I'm afraid that I'm just going to screw it up. And like I said, this is something that I've seen coming for a long time, and I've just sort of put blinders on, and now here it is, and I don't want to screw it up, but he's okay.
Yeah. Got it.
Happier than ever. He seems to be in a good place. I think this isn't something that I've shared with anyone, not my husband, not his own father doesn't know any of what he's going through. So it's all just on me, and I don't, I know that I'm his person, and I don't want to screw it up for him. I don't want to be.
No, I get it. I totally get it. I learned a long time ago, in working with parents, one of the things, the biggest shift as a parent that I found to be really helpful for myself and working with parents is stop trying to be the perfect parent and enjoy the shit out of parenting. Okay? That's a radically different way of going about parenting, to try to be the perfect mom or to just enjoy the shit out of being a mom. Those are two totally different things and will take you in different paths. So right now, the concern, it's really easy. And I remember when that was for me, I was trying to be the perfect dad, and I got tight and constricted and control, and it really wasn't playing out very well. And then I just discarded that, and I said, I'm just going to enjoy the shit out of being a dad. And that was a game changer for me, Lori, a complete and utter game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually just really helpful, because I'm definitely at a point where I feel like I'm carrying it all on my own, and he's asked me to keep our conversations private, and so I'm honoring that. And I just, I know I'm his person to turn to, and I want to make sure. I don't know. Another fear of mine is that I want him to know that I'm okay with whatever. But because I have all these questions and all these outside concerns, I think he reads it. He probably senses it, and I just need to really dial that back. And
well, it sounds like you have a really lovely relationship with your son and a really neat foundation, and I really admire the fact that you're on this call, and the things that you're sharing really sound promising. They really do, Lori. And the other thing is, and this is something, that Kyla and I talk about on a regular basis. This was part of my recovering from being a control freak, is that I didn't have a very good relationship with not knowing in the past, Lori. Like, I needed to know how things were going to turn out. I needed to know what was going to happen. I would need to know, like, if I show up this way or say this, how it's going to go. And boy, did that ever turn me into a neurotic, mentally ill person. Okay. And so, but what happened is, when I started to create a new relationship with not knowing, oh my gosh, I didn't know not knowing produced such a nice feeling. I was so terrified of not knowing. So the sheer fact that you have such a lovely relationship with your son, and you literally are both in unknown territory, and yet you're looking for knowns, that's craziness in my mind. I don't, not to be rude or anything, but the more you can really get in line with how things are, like, the truth is, you both are in over your head, you're in unknown territory. You don't know what the future holds for either of you. So you just do the best you can, and you start trusting your own intuition, your own common sense to navigate. and stop looking on forums and books and all that other. That's outside in wisdom to do it right, to get it right. And the quicker you can uh, abandon that stuff, okay, and embrace the fact that I don't know where this is going. I'm in over my head. He seems to be okay. There's a part of me that's okay, but I'm torn. That's fine. Like if you could just embrace that, you just take the nice foundation you guys already have, and you go to another level. In my mind.
Yeah, I like all of that. That's a good place to start, I think.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Lori. Well, if it's okay with you, would it be all right if we chat with Lawrence for a bit?
Sure, of course.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lawrence, are you still there?
Still here, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Hmm.
Did you hear anything, or do you have a specific question, or is something kind of what's alive for you in this conversation right now?
Alive. Well, I certainly heard quite a lot. There's a lot to unpack there.
It is a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I certainly agree with a lot of what you said there. Because obviously, for starters, perfection is obviously unattainable. It's just not. It's just not happening. So I kind of let that go a long time ago.
Oh, good.
I'm just looking for my case, I'm just looking for manageable. I suppose for me, I guess I should back up a little bit because you probably don't know too much about my situation. I've got two kids. Both of them are trans.
Okay.
In fact, it's it's kind of ironic. One's going female to male. The other one's going male to female. Sort of.
How old are they, Lawrence?
Good question. One is in 19, going on 20. I'll be picking him up this Sunday.
Okay.
And he's going to have wisdom teeth pulled. Ay.
Okay.
That's something. The other is 17 and is here. The other one that says 17 is her name is Setsuko.
Okay.
And she also has autism and developmental delays.
Okay, gotcha.
So I guess I kind of came in to the in this mainly when our firstborn came out. I kind of found out via a note on the refrigerator that he had written.
Okay.
I actually didn't know what to make of it because I read it at 5 o'clock in the morning before I even had a cup of coffee, and didn't pay any attention to it whatsoever until my wife told me about it later. So personally, I'm fine with that as long as he's safe, and so far he seems to be.
Okay.
I think he's run into a few issues where he is. He's over at UT Knoxville. Setsuko sometimes ran into problems mainly at school. Always had problems at school, but mainly that's because of the autism.
Yeah.
But when it really kind of when she started wearing dresses at school, that bothered a lot of the people. I don't think it really bothered the students that much. I think it bothered the school administrators. And so eventually, I think we finally took matters into our own hands and we started homeschooling. It was a bad environment for her anyway because she really just could not handle the sound. The whole building is just too overwhelming for her anyway.
Yeah.
but but because school systems kind of get on our nerves anyway. Mm.
Mhm.
So, so I'm definitely not looking for anything like perfection here. Manageable, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, as far as, the as I said, LGBTQ, I guess I kind of thought, well, this is nothing because we've been dealing with autism like forever. So
Yeah.
what's another
This is
thing on
easy
top?
compared to that, right?
Yeah, well, I guess everything is a matter of perspective. For one person, dealing with LGBTQ could be absolutely overwhelming for them. It would be there could be some people struggle with it
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
deal. I've even seen friends struggle with just coming out as gay
Mm-hmm.
to even their friends, their family members, and they struggle with it. So I certainly don't want to discount anyone else's struggles.
Yeah.
I can only really relay my own
Yeah.
struggles with this and the autism as well.
Yeah.
Um, as far as I will say this, and this kind of goes along with what you said earlier about about experiencing life rather than trying to controlling it, trying to get inside his or her head,
Mm-hmm.
as it were, trying to make it more about you rather than the child,
Yeah.
and actually getting to know them.
Yeah.
Um, Over several years, we've taken Setsuko to various therapists for the autism, for various parenting classes, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really find interesting is the one therapist that really has helped her the most has been the transgender therapist.
Hmm.
I find that interesting,
Hmm.
refreshing,
Yeah.
somewhat exciting. Matter of fact, I took this. He's so good. I made him my therapist.
Mhm.
Uh,
No.
I S is so incredibly comfortable with him. So it's like, huh? Well, this is cool. I
Mm.
just hope the insurance continues to pay for it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, I love how much acceptance I hear from you, Lawrence. I really, um, with I get that it's challenging, but I'm really hearing a lot of acceptance and love, and yeah, it's just I'm really touched by that, Lawrence.
Oh, thank you. Let's just say that's one less thing I have to worry about.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've got other stuff I can worry about, usually medical bills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, a big part of what I do is I don't like the fact that people worry unnecessarily in my mind.
You're right.
You know, in, as a recovering worrier myself, I've done a lot of research, and it doesn't pay any dividends. Like I've never like when I really looked at the logic behind worrying, there's no logic to it. My life had never improved at all with worrying.
Yeah, you're right. It's sort of when it happens to me, when I start having these moments, I guess I'd call them maybe anxiety attacks or something. It's almost like I'm driving down the road and the car is saying check oil, check engine light, et cetera, et cetera. And then suddenly the car stops and you discovered, well, there's been no oil in the engine this whole time, and your engine seizes up.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like in my brain when
Yeah.
worry just
Yeah.
starts doing that.
Yeah. Well, can I talk about that for 1 second? Because you're not alone in that.
Go right ahead.
I call it forgetting to put the phone back on its charger syndrome.
Okay.
And what it means is that I've just lost respect for where my power comes from, innocently. And I've innocently just kind of rolled up my sleeves and just self-reliant wise, just trying to go about doing things the best I can. And what I saw, and what's really helpful here, is that we're all part of a larger system. And I'm not here to tell people what that is, but when people look towards the direction that they're part of something bigger than just themselves, that simply by looking in that direction and starting to have more respect for that, more appreciation, more gratitude for that, their phones start to charge back up. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
What also is the byproduct of looking in that direction is that their minds settle down and that their worry starts to go away. Okay. So
Yeah.
not only does the battery charge back up, but all of the crazy apps that were bugging out the system and slowing everything down start to close, and you get back to factory default button, you know? And then there's something else that you said, like, I've never met a perfect human being, yet the source of every human being is perfect. Okay? That's the irony here. Like there is no perfect human being, but there's something underneath the human dimension, okay? Which what in my language I call it universal mind, universal consciousness, universal thought. It's this invisible power underneath the human dimension that when people start to understand, it's transformative in their lives. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's always perfect. That's always perfect. All right. So, and when I look towards that, and even with somebody who has an illness or a disability or whatever it is, or even some of my peers work as psychiatrists with bipolar and schizophrenics and prison systems and very difficult scenarios, is when they focus on their clients' innate well-being, it's remarkable what happens. I mean, bipolar, schizophrenia, to the fact that they reduce their medication, sometimes come completely off of it. So when we point people back to their innate well-being, their 100% okayness that's within, what naturally occurs is that their minds settle down, their nervous systems settle down. They go from worrier to wellness and well-being. Okay. Now that's what's on offer for all of us. Okay. And that's what Kyla and I do, is we point people back to the fact that they're sitting on okayness. Like, and what I mean is, if the insurance stops paying, you're still okay, Lawrence. If whatever happens in life, you are still going to be okay. Okay. Whatever happens to me, whatever happens to my son, I'm going to be okay. We are all okay, always, no matter what. But when we look outside of ourselves and we think our okayness has to do with life lining up circumstantially or situationally, that's where the great misunderstanding lies. Okay? And at best, what we do is we attempt to manage and control these circumstances or situations as a strategy to feel secure in our okayness, and it just never works out that way. Okay. Does that make any sense to you, Lawrence?
Sounds, in other words, the expression "putting the cart before the horse" comes irresistibly to mind.
Yeah. Say more about that.
Well, and what you said is that, we think of our okayness is based upon our current circumstances, whether it be uh, our children, our children, our medical insurance, the size of the bill, the size of the house, the problems, et cetera, et cetera. But if we focus on our actual innate okayness,
Yes.
then that gives us a better perspective on the issues that are happening around us and gives us more resilience, more strength to handle some of the situations as best we can.
Yes. Yes. So that's what you want to focus on right there. That's what we want you to see. And that's what we want you to have more respect for. And that's what we want you to point your children to.
Sounds very vaguely minimalist. I like it.
Well, I like the word simple because that's truly what it is. It's very, very simple, but then so is Einstein's theory of relativity. Right?
True that.
Right?
True that.
Like it's so simple, the theory of relativity, that it's still bearing fruit today. People are unpacking that. And what I'm sharing with you and what Kyla and I have been touched by is the simplicity of what we're pointing to that continues to bear fruit in understanding and insight and a nicer life day after day after day after day. Okay? So you're absolutely right. I love what you're seeing. Keep looking in that direction. Okay? Now, I'd like to offer, we're coming up on the hour here. I'd like to offer you guys a book to read that will support you in pointing in this direction. Actually, I'll give you two books. The first book is The Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal. Okay, so that's kind of a standard that Kyla and I encourage our clients to take a look at. Okay, there's a second book that I would highly recommend, and it's called Parenting from the Heart by Jack Pransky. Okay, so those two books will equip both you, Lawrence, and Lori with coming home to the deeper truth under the human dimension that will pay benefit not only in your parenting, but in your careers, in your health, in your well-being. It's the most leveraged aspect of the human dimension that's overlooked, which is where does our experience come from? Okay, and how does the mind work? Okay, and when people know that, they now have the keys to unlocking human potential, and that's what we want for both of you.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah. Kyla, do you have anything that you'd like to add or that you heard in here that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Lawrence and Lori for being so vulnerable and sharing where you're at and what you're going through with your children. I feel really touched by it. Growing up, I actually knew I was gay when I was in third grade, and I hid that for about 14 years. And I can relate to what Lori was talking about with your child and how, there's this tendency to want to ask your child if they're okay. And growing up, my mom used to do that all the time. She would ask me constantly, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you okay?" In fact, 6 years ago, when I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, after I was diagnosed, every time my mom would call me, she wouldn't even say hi. It would just be, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? How's your anxiety? How's your anxiety?" So it was just like this constant for me, where it was like this alarm was going off every time I talked to my mom, and it was this feeling of like everyone's checking on me because I know they care, but there was this feeling of I'm never okay. Like it was this reminder every day of like, oh, I'm not okay, even though I knew, again, my mom was doing it because she cared. She truly cared about me. And she was trying to come from a place of love, but it was really coming from a place of fear, scared of what was happening to her child and what could happen to her child. So I can relate from the kid's perspective of like kind of what it's like when a parent is checking in and using the words of like, are you okay? And how that can affect the child. And again, it's not like coming from a, like, I know that the parent is doing it because they care. But what I find most useful now, seeing it, is in every area of my life, to approach any situation, any human being that I interact with, is coming from a place of love instead of coming from a place of fear. And it's so transformative for not only me, but for the individual that I'm interacting with. So that was just something that was coming up for me when I was listening to Lawrence and Lori. And again, I thank you both for sharing and being here tonight.
Mm-hmm. Great. And
Thank you.
and what I would say is, if you guys have any other questions that come up, feel free to ping Kyla or myself. And we're looking at doing a few more of these, and we'd love you guys to be part of them. And we'd like to kind of grow the community and support parents. So please feel free to ping us if something comes up or you have questions. We'd like to make ourselves available to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I did not know what to expect when I hopped on this call. It was kind of last minute, but I feel a little bit better now about not having to check in with him and just being confident that, he's okay, and that I'm not helping by asking, are you okay? Do you want to talk? That's good to hear, and it's given me a lot to think about. So I'm definitely glad I hopped on.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, if it's okay with you guys, then we'll call it a wrap for tonight. And like I said, we're available. Feel free to reach out to us. You can find me on Facebook as well, and or Kyla as well. So thank you guys, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Take care.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.